Ancestral Totems, the bane of every melee build in Path of Exile. For as long as I've been playing this game, these totems have been a thing. But what exactly is the problem here? Ancestral Warchief and Ancestral Protector provide buffs to the character while they're active. And these aren't insignificant buffs either. At level 20, Ancestral Warchief grants 18% more melee damage, while Ancestral Protector grants 20% more attack speed. And there's even a Vaal version of Ancestral Warchief which improves its buff to 32% more melee damage while it's active. That's not all though, because there's even a passive skill too on the passive skill tree, Panopticon, which the vast majority of melee builds are forced to anoint or path to on the tree, since it provides 50% increased effect of those ancestral buffs, granting a massive damage boost that simply can't be ignored. And the reason why it can't be ignored is because the buffs provided by Ancestral Totems typically make up a huge chunk of the damage of a melee build. You can open pretty much any melee build in PoB, uncheck the Ancestral Totems, and you'll see just how much damage is lost without them. They can't be ignored, so you need to use them, and that's bad for a few reasons. First, the main one, that's the playstyle. You essentially need to make sure these totems are up any time you need to deal the most damage. Whether that's bossing or fighting a tanky rare, the totems need to be there too, unless you want to spend twice the amount of time killing that mob. And this is where the problems start, because totems without investment into totem life, well, they just die. They die a lot, to everything. So you keep plopping them down, hopefully in a better position so they don't instantly flop over. Or you could spec into the band-aid fix that is the Totem Mastery for lingering Ancestral Totem buffs. Nice if you have access to a Totem Mastery, not so nice if you're anointing Panopticon. But even then, this only makes the playstyle a bit less irritating. And that's only problem one, because you also need a bunch of extra gem slots to fit this totem setup into every melee build. At the very least, you need 3 gem sockets, typically multiple totems linked to Ancestral Protector, then another separate socket for Vaal Ancestral Warchief. More if you want to add utility links like Maim or Cutting Strike to those totems. You know, to make them more useful. So what happened here? Why is this a thing? In a Path of Exile 2 interview back in January, Raiz, ZiggyD and Nugiyen sat down with Rory and Jonathan of Grinding Gear Games to discuss the upcoming sequel, and they got into a bit of discussion about melee totems in Path of Exile 1. When asked about Ancestral Totems being annoying and mandatory, Rory and Jonathan had an interesting response.
Because melee's not really that great in PoE 1, and so it's kind of like melee totems are part of the kind of like attempt to make that better, like at some point in the past. And so, like, I certainly will want PoE 2 to have melee totems as well, but the way they work, I mean what makes them so annoying, right? Like, what is it really at the core of what makes them annoying?
Right?
I think this is
what's your take on that?
The main thing that it's got a huge damage buff, right? And you might as well
mandatory.
have that huge damage buff.
That is,
which is
definitely
almost certainly gone.
That will definitely need to go, right? There should be no reason why that should give you a damage buff like that. In fact, why was that even done in the first place?
I feel like them doing damage should be the damage buff, right? Like,
yeah, of course, right? Well, yeah, why not? Why wouldn't it be, right? Obviously. So why was that damage buff even added? Why is that?
It's probably just because everything we gave melee was some sort of buff to their thing if it wasn't.
But it was just kind of like an awkward ancient band-aid, I guess, at this point.
I don't remember why that would have even been added.
Might have just been to make them different from other totems. Just wasn't done the right way.
So,
yeah.
But did they have that when they were added?
Yeah.
They did?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
The buff has been buffed at various points.
I feel like maybe I'll even suggest this to Mark, but it's like we probably should just remove that and like make them better, right?
I think we already have in the plans.
Oh, and yeah, sure. But what I meant wasn't even in PoE 1, maybe, I don't know. Like either way though, like that's not up to me. That's a Mark question. But
I think that's
but go on.
I think that's not why they're like considered bad though. That's the
I agree. The other
factor.
element is having to recast them all the time, right? That's your concern
for sure.
Which, I mean, it'll be an optional playstyle if you want to invest in melee totems and focus on that stuff.
Yeah.
And probably also you're investing in stuff that makes it far more convenient to keep them up.
Then the question is, why is it not unfun to recast your spell totems?
Why is it? Like, what?
Because the spell totems are doing your damage. Like, they're the main thing you want to do.
As opposed to the melee totems, which are doing the damage. Right. So what you're saying is that it might be fine to recast the spell, the melee totems if they were actually doing damage to the monsters as opposed to buffing
if you're
you.
doing a totem
build. Yeah, right. So no, it really comes always back to the fact that they give you a damage boost, which makes them mandatory and makes it feel frustrating because you need to keep the damage boost up and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it all stems from that decision, I think.
I kind of got the impression from this exchange that Jonathan had the realization in this exact moment that melee totems are bad, that they are poorly designed, and that they need to be addressed. And there was also the mention here of Jonathan bringing this issue up with Mark for Path of Exile 1, which is promising. But this is not the only reason why I think melee totems may be finally addressed in 3.24, because there's also the existence of transfigured gems, and the lack of a transfigured variant for both Ancestral Warchief and Ancestral Protector. They could use this opportunity to help alleviate this problem, or better still, just remove Ancestral Totem buffs entirely and bake those buffs into melee skills at a baseline level. This would require a redesign of Panopticon and the Dawnstrider unique boots that drop from the Searing Exarch, but that's a small price to pay for the massive improvement to melee gameplay that this change would make. What do you think? Will we see Ancestral Totems finally addressed in 3.24? Let me know by commenting below. Shout out to my patrons, thank you for your support, it is greatly appreciated. If you want to support the growth of this channel and help me to be able to spend more of my time making videos here on YouTube, consider becoming a patron. The link is in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.